Now to the busiest man when it comes to covering the USL and actually having a life and a job and all these other kinds of things. We have finally pinned down Kaylor to discuss everything that's going on in USL Championship. And nothing like going away on vacation and then band competitions at the real world and then having all hell break loose. It started, I want to say like 9:15, 9:20 on Tuesday morning with the word coming out of North Carolina. And then from there, you get Colorado Springs and then all the other things going on. So where would you like to start, sir?
I think the most shocking one for most people would be North Carolina. A couple of us got the text message really late last night or 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
This was happening. I thought that it would be held on to for a little bit longer. I thought that North Carolina or that it would be not be leaked until probably after the playoff run.
Right, yeah.
But it got out that North Carolina is going on a hiatus / shutting up shop.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of layers that go on here. Some people would say, didn't OKC Energy take a hiatus? Yes, they did. They're still not back. It was supposed to be 1 year. It has been, looks like 4 now.
Yeah.
So, we can talk all of that. We can also discuss how they have said that they are holding off for Division One, that they would rather wait until Division One comes around. They have a new stadium in the Raleigh area because they know that Raleigh is important to the Premier League footprint. It's not called the Premier League, but it will be. Tony Schultz, that's foreshadowing. And then there's a whole lot that dives into that. And then there is the fact that the USLPA, they informed the players 2 nights ago of this. And what they have been talking about is the standards. The last time you and I talked, it was about a 20-minute conversation on the incoming possible lockout. Yep. This is what those players are fighting for. This is what the USLPA is fighting for. So you're looking at a USL side from the HQ perspective of we're having a team go under. We're about to have a lot of unemployed players, a lot of unemployed coaches. We are about to have a team who, the same team that just folded, has just put in an application for Division One. So do we let them back in after they have just showed us they are not financially stable? Then you have a player's side of this is a good reason to lock out. We don't know if we'll even have a job. Will our contracts have a folding clause? We'll talk about that. There's just so much to dive into on the North Carolina front.
Yeah, for those that may follow on the 280-character app, at USL Players is the USLPA, and page 2 of a slideshow. Under the current collective bargaining agreement, NCFC players with contracts for the upcoming season are left with pink slips and just 2 months' salary. There are no other protections. This is their wording as I'm reading the slideshow. As they say, the systemic failure has happened again and again in the USL Championship over the past decade. 12 clubs have shuttered before the 2021 CBA players received nothing after being told their clubs were folding, proving that players are treated as disposable while the league continues to protect owners over workers every time. We're fighting for a new fair standard, 75% of salary when clubs shut down. Bold-faced players shouldn't lose their futures because an owner changes direction. And so that's what the USL Players Association put out on Tuesday afternoon. And it was interesting, a couple of different things where you had the notification that the North Carolina franchise, however you want to phrase it, their charter, their permission slip, their whatever you want to call it, ends at the end of this season.
Yep.
I guess it's a license. Let's put it that way. So it is an operating license. Ends after this season. And so without an operating license in the USL on the whole, North Carolina FC as an entity is going to sit there and try and wait until 28, have a larger stadium, because Wake Med, and we talked about this on Tuesday morning show, only has a capacity of 10,000. You need at least 15 for Division One, so you've got to find a place for that. And the idea that, and they're betting on the backside of this, that they'll be allowed into this new Division One footprint come 28, there's a lot going on, at least on the licensing front, trying to sit there and figure out what they know what they want to do. Can they get there? That'll be the question.
Good friend John Morrissey, USL Tactics, he wrote a fantastic article over on Backheeled. And one thing that he mentioned was there was Malik had the team up for sale last year. This was a very public secret that for North Carolina and NC Courage were essentially up for sale, or he was looking for $100 million loan. Which me too, man, to try and fund both clubs, specifically the Courage.
Yeah.
And a lot of us in the USL circles thought that North Carolina was going under last year because he was looking to sell, and it's a lot easier to shut shop on a Division II shop on an NWSL team. So clearly that decision's been made here for him. And one thing I really got to thinking about was, and this is something that John mentions in his Backheeled article. I'm not going to spoil the whole thing because people should read it themselves.
Right.
But he mentions that the net worth of Malik comes from about a $92 million sell on a startup, which I wish I had that.
Yes.
But I'm going to phrase it like this, because $92 million sounds like a lot to Kaylor Hodges.
Yeah.
But if I were to walk up to Arthur Blank and say, I'm going to give you $92 million for Atlanta United, how does that conversation go?
It doesn't, sir.
The levels to what we are talking about and how much money it costs to run a professional club, how much money it costs to have these entities, this is just a different world. $92 million sounds like a lot until you realize that's not liquid cash. That is net worth. And a lot of this stuff comes down to how can we kind of push ourselves to a different net worth, because buying into the USL Championship makes you worth more than buying into League One, right? Maybe not liquid cash, because you might end up being poorer going into the championship.
Right.
You spend more money. You're spending more money on players, coaches, et cetera, et cetera. Meanwhile, League One, less cost of entry, lower salaries. What do you think Division One's going to be? It's going to be easier to sell a new investor on Division One when the net worth is higher, because the net worth is some of the most important thing you can have when you're an ultra rich person. So to me, this feels like a posturing move to try to still sell North Carolina FC. I don't take this in complete good faith that they are waiting for Division One in a 15,000 seat stadium. For me, it feels like posturing to try to sell to a new investor of, look how much more this is worth.
Yeah.
We are selling something that is worth more than what it was before.
And now you have this announcement making its way out into the coverage atmosphere as you're heading into a home game against Rhode Island in the postseason.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some gray clouds hanging over this, and I know that we were all looking at this going, wow, the timing on this release could not have been any worse.
Yes, there is a lot of ways to think about this. I got the question on the 280 character app, and it was, do you feel like this is going to motivate North Carolina players because they are actively fighting for new jobs? Like, do they want to put on as good of a showing as possible because none of their contracts are valuable anymore? There is no more. This is a tryout for every other club in the USL. There's also the side of this that they want to go out together. There is no more next year. There is no, we'll run it back. This is the last time forever with North Carolina FC. But then there's also the side of, oh my God, what just happened? And we could see this go several ways. Look, a couple years ago when you had San Diego Loyal, right? They played really well. They have one of the best seasons they had in their short history. Phoenix knocks them out. And at the very end, you could kind of see the doom happening on the Loyals players' faces. Easy for me to say. As it was happening, of oh my God, that's it, and you can feel it in the stadium of oh my God, this is it.
Yeah.
There is no championship run. There is no more Loyal. But you also have the Northern Colorado Hailstorm side of this. Players weren't being paid. Nobody was getting paid. The league had to jump in. The players had every right to just kind of collapse and curl over and die. They didn't. They win a championship in the Jägermeister Cup. It was turned into one of those things of screw you, screw the owner, screw everybody. All we have is each other.
Right.
They're leaders in the locker room. If you have the leaders in the locker room that are going to say, no, screw this. We are going to do this. We are going to move on. We are going to do this for each other. Talk about Conway. Conway was in San Diego. He's seen this song and dance before. He's been a part of it in a playoff situation. Maybe he has that kind of experience that can tell everybody, this is all we got. All we have is each other. But if they're not careful, this could end up being a very sad state of affairs.
Now, in addition to that, and like I said, we'll put a bookmark in that because I think that we are barely scratching the surface with North Carolina, because then there's also the courage element that's attached to this, and where the courage fit into all of this dynamic as well with the NWSL, as they have two expansion teams coming in. What are the courage and where are they in all of this right now? Then you have the news out of Colorado Springs, where head coach and sporting director were shown the door on Tuesday, late morning, early afternoon, depending on when you looked at the information. What was your thoughts on Colorado Springs not really wasting a whole lot of time and sending two coaches and front office personnel on their way?
Honestly, I could not be more shocked at Hogan and Chambers getting shown the door.
Yeah.
Especially after they win you a championship last year.
Yeah.
They make the playoffs despite, I think, almost everybody coming into the season did not rate Colorado Springs that highly because the roster was decimated and they didn't replace anybody. They didn't bring anyone in. In terms of the Western Arms race, they lost it. Everyone knew it. And maybe that again, and he didn't do a good enough job as the sporting director. I'm more or less going to guess that this is owners did not necessarily spend to give him a good roster. And even if you do feel like it's Hogan, do you really find that Chambers and Hogan are tied at the hip? I don't think so. If I am looking, I am telling myself, if I'm a caller, to have somebody lined up. They have to have something planned. Well, I can tell you with almost certainty, it's not going to be Ryan Martin. Ryan Martin already has another home that he's going to be landing at that will be announced later.
Okay.
So there is the big fish left in the USL from this year. That is Ryan Martin. Okay, well, how about someone like a Phil Lauber who just got released from Oakland?
Mm-hmm.
Are you positive that Phil Lauber, after a half of a season with Oakland, is better than Chambers? I'm not. I think that Chambers has been there for 5 years and maybe they feel like things got stale in the locker room. It's hard to say that the year after you win a championship. How can you truly say things got stale? I don't know, unless they have a superstar lined up that we don't know about, and maybe somebody is moving clubs that we just do not know about yet. This feels insane to me of a decision that I don't think you can really make sense of it to me.
First round of the USL Championship playoffs had its own moments of chaos attached to it. And so,
which ones didn't?
I know, really.
I couldn't breathe. The biggest blowout was a 2-0 win for New Mexico. That was the biggest blowout of a match. Everything else was.
Mm-hmm. And in the East, I know all of us were sitting there saying, okay, yeah, in the East, everything's fine. You know, it's going to be chalk. It's the 1 and the 2. And you're like, oh, sure, absolutely. But then, you know, you end up with Detroit Detroit City, Le Rouge getting a win and knocking off Lou City 1-0 at Lynn Family. And then, in addition to that, you end up with Rhode Island and Charleston going full 90, getting nothing, keep going, getting nothing, and then Rhode Island winning in PKs. So the 1 and the 2 in the East are out the door, and now the East has turned into a street fight with the 2 prohibitive teams in the Eastern Conference sitting there and watching with the rest of us.
And if they were to win out, somehow, some way, Tulsa does not make it through. Mm-hmm. Who's hosting the USL Finals? North Carolina FC.
Knocking off Loudoun in the opening round, 1-0. You end up with Pittsburgh winning in PKs, knocking off Hartford, who'd gotten hot. North Carolina knocks off Loudoun 1-0. Tulsa knocks off Switchbacks. First round exit, you knock out your sporting director and your head coach. New Mexico United sends San Antonio on their way. Phoenix Rising wins 1-0. Wilmer Cabrera's out in El Paso. I forgot to mention that happening. Yeah. And then Orange County knocks off Sacramento in penalties 5-4. So a lot of the big names are gone, and it has just been a stunning opening round in the championship.
So let me kind of run through this really fast, and I'm going to pull up my notes. So if people hear the clicking, clacking of a keyboard,
absolutely fine.
We have our show. We had our show last night where we talked about everything and what's leading into everything, what led us here. And with the Lou City side, I want to start there. 2 years ago, when Pittsburgh was the Players' Shield winners, I went on the USL show and I said Detroit City is going to give Pittsburgh a scare / beat Pittsburgh. Mm-hmm. And it had everything to do with Detroit had one of the nastiest defenses I've ever seen. Yeah. And Nate Steinwasser was back there somewhere.
Check.
All it took was one moment of magic or PKs. And guess what? Gasso came up and had a moment of magic. Win 1-0. This is not that Detroit City team. It still has the same nuts and bolts. And when you're looking at this back line, you're looking at a Bryant. You're looking at Amamensa. Shane Wheat comes over from Sacramento, but still very good player. But Carl Sedania, who been hit or miss, especially when you compare him to a Steinwasser, it's been a considerable step down for them. But I also think Steinwasser might be the best goalie to ever play in the USL, and I really do believe that.
Wow. Okay.
I mean, if you've ever seen him in person, it is just unbelievable how good he is. Saldana comes up with one of the best saves I have ever seen to claw one out of the top corner and keep it 1-0 after Amamensa puts them up. Right. From there, all Detroit City had to do, I say all they had to do, they just had to hold on for dear life. Yes. Now, there are cruise out people, into which I think they're insane. And if someone ever looks at you and unironically says, I am cruise out, I don't know, go see a doctor.
Fine, let him go to Major League Soccer and finally coach a franchise there.
I think a couple things may be true here. I think that Cruz may have cooked a little bit too much on some of his decisions. Okay. I think taking out a Goodrum, taking out a Serrano may have cost them in the end, bringing on an OMB, a Lancaster, a Gleedle, right? When you could have had your superstars on the pitch, I feel like he was just trying to find anything. Yeah. I think maybe he pulled the wrong triggers. Okay. But even so, it's a one-game knockout. Mm-hmm. Anything can happen. And I think this more or less proves the point, especially when you look at Charleston, Rhode Island. Mm-hmm. There was no bad teams in the USL this year. How many times have I come on this show and said that? There is no bad team in the USL this year. There were just great teams and good teams. Yeah. Well, guess what? A good team beat a great team. That's just how it works sometimes. Mm-hmm. With Rhode Island, this one makes a little bit more sense to me. Okay. Rhode Island is a really good team defensively. Really good team defensively. Coque Vegas came second in Golden Glove for a reason. Mm-hmm. They have a really good back line. They just don't know how to score goals. Well, Cal Jennings gets in 1v1 2 times and forces Coque Vegas to make one save, and the other one, doesn't really, he kind of makes a meal of it. Other than that, Rhode Island kind of played lockdown defense, and they did what Rhode Island did this year. They played defense, could not score. Guess what? It doesn't matter because Arturo Rodriguez skies one over the bar, and that's it. That's how penalties go sometimes.
Yeah.
This one felt like a quintessential we got Rhode Island this year. They are going to defense you and then pray to God they score, a la Detroit City 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Now you look over at the West. Despite Colorado Springs' best efforts, where they were knocking on the door, they end up losing. So FC Tulsa, the USL runs through Tulsa, where One Oak Field was absolutely electric. If you did not watch that match, it was, I think they were almost a sellout crowd, right up there with the Lab. You would not really know as a baseball field when you were looking at the atmosphere of the match. And then there's Sacramento, where Sacramento get knocked out by Orange County. It was on CBS Sports Network, and you are just in awe of what's going on. 2 players get sent off, including Roro Lopez, welcome to retirement, big dog, with a red card.
Yeah.
And Colin Shuttler gets brought off the pitch just to have Cadono come on, the backup goalkeeper, I guess the penalty specialist. And what does he do? He saves the penalty to win it all, or to win this match. It was just incredible soccer all throughout. Across the rest of the league, Pittsburgh 0-0 their way with Hartford with penalties once again.
Yeah.
You mentioned North Carolina taking down Loudoun. Loudoun absolutely doing everything in their power to try to win, but North Carolina is just really strong defensively, and they showed it. New Mexico with the most defiant win of everybody, again 2-0. Just not what you're expecting when you're playoffs, when you should have the biggest blowouts. But 1-0 from Akale, and then later on Valentin Noel shows up. And I think everybody knows when they're looking at this Sanchez team with New Mexico that they have the potential to go on a run. If they're getting hot at the right time, good luck. And Phoenix Rising, despite going through weird defensive changes, might have one of the best back lines left in this playoffs. So if there's going to be anybody that can shut down Calera in Tulsa, it might be Phoenix. This is just a fascinating playoffs. True coin flips everywhere.
League One really quickly. Chattanooga finishes a close second to 1 Knox, and they're one and done because P-Hop goes in there. Ollie Wright gets the goal, and at CHI, and CHI Memorial Stadium gets turned on its head, and Portland now gets to travel to Spokane. Once again, chaos reigns in just smaller numbers when it comes to League One.
Yeah, again, no blowouts here. Absolutely none. You see Portland, they go up there, it's Ollie Wright, and who else would it be? That's just what they do. And now you're looking at Spokane versus Portland, where I am really interested on what comes of this. You're looking at, this is so gross. They had Nico Brett, John Brown. They got Luis Heel. They got Reedy. They got Lewis. They got Bryce. They got Lucky Apara. They got Garcia. They got Miller. They got Waldeck. They got Marinaccio. That's their starting lineup.
Yeah.
And then you're looking at a Washington, a Keegan, an Ollie Wright, a James, a Mikey Lopez, Punagaran. They got Koulibaly, Green. And then Morse, who's the backup, comes in, stands on his head, and plays out of his mind.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so fascinating what happens in this one. Spokane plays so good defensively, but inviting in pressure from Washington, Titus Washington, and Ollie Wright just feels like the last thing you want to do. They are so lethal when you give them a chance. Also, I'm going to be fascinated to see how many Portland fans go out to Spokane because – it's not the longest away day in the U.S., but it's dang close.
Yep. And then one other note I wanted to catch up with you about Tony Scholes being now named president of the new USL Division One, coming over and knows all about promotion and relegation. Chief football officer of the the English Premier League, and former CEO of Stoke City. He was named president of the new top-tier Division One professional men's league, and so he's got a bit of a runway, but he's going to be in charge of the thing.
Welcome to the job, man. You've been here for one day and North Carolina's dead. So thanks a lot.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated by this because everybody sees CFO, the chief football officer of the Premier League, and you're like, okay, they're the real deal. I was looking into what the chief football officer does, and it's really just kind of communicating. I'm sure this is a gross oversimplification, and Tony Scholes is going to hear this and be like, "You're an idiot," but it's basically communicating with clubs and giving them paths for academies. How do you set up your academy? How do you set yourself up as a club for massive amount of success? How does the money work? And it really is just working with the clubs to make sure that they are doing everything as well as they can. And they really, whenever I was doing the research on what a chief football officer does, it was really talking about the academies, which the USL has been talking about how they want to get more involved with. They want to have better academies going. I'm going to be interested to see what this actually means, because being the president of the USL, I mean, or a Division One, obviously big deal. Premier League, he's been working with big teams, big money, all that kind of stuff. But how much do those things truly translate with each other? I'm not sure. But at least they have somebody in charge that this is starting to feel a little bit more real, but not to be doom and gloom. But as we all know, CBA is still knocking in the championship. And if they don't get it sorted out there, the Pro Rel's not going to happen. You can still have a Division One league, but can you get Pro Rel? Because something tells me Division One getting those standards changed, those professional standards, like the 15,000 seater stadium with North Carolina FC, a lot of other clubs, a lot of that's going to hinge on if Pro Rel is happening, because otherwise every single team, if you're going to join the USL, even down in League One, is going to need a 15,000 seater stadium. If they don't get the Pro Rel part right, the D1 part's not going to happen either. So I'm going to be really fascinated to see how that works.
Kaylor Hodges at Kaylor Hodges at the USL show, and his buddy John Morrissey at USL Tactics, writing his piece over at Backheeled about everything going on at North Carolina FC. So I guess you're never supposed to go on vacation ever again.
Yeah, the week after you come back, everything will fall apart in the leagues that you love. That's what I've learned.
Yep. And so when things continue to grow, Kaylor, we'll catch up with you next week when we have more stuff to talk about in the championship and everything.
League One finals.
Yes, and we're going to get that much closer to the finals. Good to see you, my friend. Welcome back.
Thanks, man.